Why did the room go silent the moment she stepped in, as if someone had pulled the air right out of their lungs? Maya didn't understand at first. One second her classmates were laughing, nudging each other, trading insults disguised as jokes. The next, every eye locked on the door. She followed their gaze, confused, a slow chill pooling at the base of her spine before she even saw who had entered. Her mother didn't rush. Commander Eva Rostova never rushed. She moved with that unsettling quiet, the kind that didn't demand attention yet somehow commanded it without effort. Her boots didn't thud like they should have on the polished floor, just a hush of motion. No uniform, no medals, no announcement, just presence. And behind her, three men who didn't bother hiding what they were. Broad shoulders, squared posture, that unreadable stillness forged somewhere farther and darker than civilian minds like to wander. The teacher's mouth was half open, a reprimand frozen in transit. The boys in the back, the ones who had spent the past week mocking Maya, calling her a liar, acting out seal poses like clowns in a cheap skit, had shrunk in their seats. One of them, Bryce, the loudest of the bunch, had his backpack half-zipped like he'd been trying to sneak his phone out only seconds earlier. Now his hand dangled uselessly, forgotten. Maya's chest felt tight for reasons that didn't make sense yet. Her mother didn't look at her, not at first. Those gray-green eyes scanned the room like she was assessing exits, threats, angles, not aggressive, just aware, always aware. Maya had grown up with that gaze, even if she never fully understood what it had seen. But she felt it now, the contrast between how she'd been treated and how the air itself bowed around this woman. The silence wasn't just surprise, it was fear, respect, confusion, something unspoken that made even the kids who didn't believe the stories suddenly believe all of them. Yet none of that had been part of the plan. Just 30 minutes earlier, Maya had been sitting alone at lunch while two girls giggled 3 tables away, mocking the way she'd said "my mom served" in history class. Bryce had stood up on his chair and pretended to rappel from the ceiling with an invisible rope, shouting orders in the worst fake military voice imaginable. Someone had filmed it. Someone always filmed everything. She hadn't cried. She didn't give them that victory. She just walked out with that quiet stiffness she inherited from her mother, but silence didn't make the whispers stop. It only fed them. When Eva finally did look at her daughter, it wasn't dramatic. Just a flicker of acknowledgement, soft, almost invisible. And then she turned toward the teacher. "I'm here for Maya," she said simply. No rank, no story, no explanation. The teacher swallowed hard, then nodded, though she hadn't actually asked permission. Maya stood slowly, her legs unsure how to carry her. That same ache she felt when people doubted her was still there, sitting under the shock. She wondered if her mother knew what they'd said, what they'd done, what they'd called her. She wondered if she would say something, ask something, or just walk out like none of this had touched her. But as she stepped past Bryce's desk, something flickered, a tremor of regret on his face. A question he would never ask out loud: what exactly had we mocked? Eva led the way out of the classroom without laying blame or demanding apology. The men behind her followed with that controlled poise that made even hallway posters seem nervous to wrinkle. Students in the corridor stepped back instinctively. Doors cracked open. Teachers paused mid-sentence. Maya kept walking, trying not to stare at the man on the right with the scar just peeking from his collar, or the one in the middle whose eyes didn't stray from each corner they passed. She didn't know their names, only that when her mother disappeared for months, men like this sometimes stood by the car when she returned. They didn't speak on the way to the parking lot. Eva held the door for Maya like a regular mom, not someone the government kept in files with blackout lines. The silence wasn't cold, it was measured. They reached a nondescript SUV. Not armored, not flashy, just clean and quiet like her. The men didn't get in. They stopped, as if awaiting her dismissal or maybe waiting to melt back into wherever they'd come from. "Back at 1400, Eva said lightly. No salute, No coded exchange, just a sentence that didn't belong in a school parking lot. The men nodded once and left. Maya slid into the front passenger seat. Her fingers were trembling, but she hid them in the sleeves of her hoodie. She didn't know what this was. A rescue? A coincidence? Did the teacher call? Did someone tell her what happened? The car started. They drove. For almost 3 minutes, there was nothing but road noise and the steady hum of the engine. Maya counted the signs they passed just to have something to anchor herself. Then her mother spoke, not looking at her, not dramatic. "They said you were being bullied." Maya's throat tightened. "Who told you?" "Does it matter?" 100 answers fought for space in her mind. She picked the smallest one. "You didn't have to come." Silence again, but not dismissive, more like she was choosing where to set her words down. "You didn't lie," Eva said finally. Maya's breath hitched. "I know." "They don't." A car honked somewhere distant. The world continued existing outside that vehicle. Maya wasn't sure how. She turned to look at her mom. "Why did you bring them?" Eva didn't flinch, to make sure they believe it now. It wasn't pride in her voice, or anger, just a truth spoken like a quiet correction to something that should never have been questioned in the first place. Maya looked back out the window, the school shrinking in the rearview mirror. Her heart was still pounding, but not from shame anymore. Something else unfurled in its place, slow, steady, unfamiliar. She didn't realize she was crying until she felt the tear cooling on her cheek. Her mother didn't comment. She just kept driving with that silent strength that made people stand straighter without knowing why. The silence between them stretched, but it didn't hurt like before. There was a question Maya had always been afraid to ask. It sat behind her teeth like a secret she didn't believe she deserved to know. She spoke before fear could pull it back. "Did you ever regret all of it, the missions, the time away?" Eva didn't answer right away. She took the next turn, eyes forward. Her hands stayed relaxed on the wheel. Then softly, "Regret doesn't change the cost. It only adds interest." Maya didn't understand all of it. Not yet. But something in those words eased a pressure she'd carried alone. They drove on. And neither of them noticed the car that turned out from the opposite lane, a dark sedan keeping just far enough back to look accidental. A habit, a shadow, a reminder that her mother's world didn't fully retreat even when she walked into classrooms. But Maya would understand that later. For now, the silence meant safety. Or the illusion of it. Why did the quiet always feel heavier when you didn't know what waited on the other end of it? Maya stared at the blur of buildings sliding past the window, wishing the world would slow down long enough for her thoughts to catch up. Her sleeve was still damp from wiping her cheek, and she kept it pressed against her palm to hide the shake she couldn't quite stop. Her mother didn't say anything else, but she didn't have to. She wasn't the kind of person who filled silence just to plug a hole. That always bothered people who didn't understand her. Most didn't. They drove for another 10 minutes, turning off the main roads until the scenery shifted from blocks of neighborhoods to the quieter sprawl of the outskirts. They weren't heading home. Maya knew that much. Home was in the opposite direction. She turned, expecting an explanation, but Eva's expression didn't offer one. She wasn't tense, wasn't angry, just deeply focused, like something unseen was unfolding layer by layer, and she was already 3 steps ahead of it. Maya finally spoke, voice softer than she meant it to be. "Are we going somewhere, or are you just driving?" The corner of her mother's mouth almost, but not quite tilted. "Both." Maya sighed, leaning back into the seat. "Cryptic works better in movies, you know." "It works where I'm from," Eva replied, unbothered. There was no map on the dashboard, no navigation prompts. But her mother drove as if she could draw the route with her eyes closed. They made one last turn, tires crunching over gravel, before the car finally slowed in front of a long, low building with faded paint and no sign. Maya blinked. "What is this place?" Eva killed the engine. Somewhere I used to go when I needed quiet. You need quiet. I'm fine, Maya muttered automatically. Her mother glanced at her then, the kind of glance that stripped away the lie from the air before it could settle. Maya looked away first. They stepped out of the car. The air smelled like dust and pine, and the late afternoon sun was sinking low enough to cast shadows that stretched like old photographs. The building looked abandoned, but as they approached, the door opened before Eva touched it. A man with graying hair and a face lined by years, real years, not just numbered ones, nodded once and stepped aside without a word. Maya stiffened. Who is he? Someone who doesn't gossip, Eva said. That was supposed to be reassuring, though it didn't feel that way. The hallway beyond the door was dimly lit, the kind of dim that made you whisper even if you didn't know why. Maya followed her mother past 3 closed doors until they reached one left half open. Inside was a small sitting area with worn chairs, a low table, and a window overlooking a patch of wild grass. Eva gestured for her to sit. Maya hesitated. Why are we here, you haven't said. I know, Eva interrupted gently, sitting across from her. So listen first. Something in her voice made Maya straighten in her chair. It wasn't command. It wasn't soft either. It was the voice she used only when she was about to tell the truth without armor. You were mocked, she said, because you spoke from truth and they spoke from ignorance. Maya stared at the table, tracing a stain in the wood grain with her thumb. You didn't have to show up like that. Yes, Eva said calmly, I did. What, to scare them? To correct their imagination. Maya huffed. You think they'll stop bothering me now? Eva's eyes didn't waver. I don't rely on hope. I rely on memory. They will remember what they saw today longer than they remember each other's names. Maya swallowed, that part she believed. Her mother leaned back slightly, hands relaxed on her knees. You've spent too long deciding if my shadow is something you should step into or run from. I won't decide that for you, but I won't let others decide it either. Maya's chest tightened at that. She didn't know what to do with the emotion that rose in response. It was easier to stay angry than to be seen. She blinked hard and looked around the room instead. You used to come here. Eva nodded once. When? When silence was the only place I could think without flinching. She paused. Missions have consequences before they end and after they're over. People think the hardest part is leaving. They forget surviving requires reflection. Maya sat with that. The light from the window caught the edge of her mother's jaw, throwing half her face into a soft shadow. For a moment, she looked older than her age. Not in a brittle way, more like time had carved meaning into her. Maya's voice came out before she could reconsider. Is this where you came after that time you didn't call for 2 months? Eva didn't blink. No, I was recovering then. From what? There was a pause long enough to make the room itself seem to hold its breath. Consequences, she said simply. Maya hated when she did that, told the truth but not the story. But today felt different. Today felt like every word was a brick placed carefully so the structure wouldn't collapse. There was another question she had been afraid to voice, one that had gnawed at her since she was 8 and overheard 2 adults whispering about the one mission that changed everything about her. Back then, Maya thought they meant Eva's absence. Now she wasn't sure. What did you do? Maya asked quietly. That made them afraid of you. Her mother didn't move for a long time. The light shifted another inch across the floor before she finally spoke. They're not afraid of what I did. They're afraid they can't understand why I did it. That wasn't enough. Not for the question Maya had carried for half her life. But before she could push further, there was a knock on the doorframe. It was the gray-haired man again. He didn't step inside. Commander, he said with the deference of someone who had once earned the right to address her and still chose caution. They're here. Maya turned sharply. Who's here? Her mother stood. People with reach, she said. and intentions I'd rather evaluate in person. Maya stood too, throat tight. Is this about me? Eva met her eyes. This is about everything that touches you. The man was already gone, his footsteps silent on the hall floor. Eva started toward the door, but paused when she realized Maya hadn't moved. You're safe here, she said. No one walks into this place without permission. Maya's voice cracked on the edge of panic. Then, why do you look like you're preparing for something? I always prepare for something, Eva said, not unkindly. Mom. Eva paused in the doorway. The word mom was rare between them, a fragile thing used only when emotion slipped past caution. She turned, and for the first time since stepping into the school, her eyes softened with a vulnerability she almost always kept hidden. No one is here to take you, or to hurt you. They only want to speak with me. Maya didn't know if that was better or worse. Eva didn't ask her to follow, but she didn't tell her to stay either. She walked down the hall with the same controlled pace she'd entered the classroom with earlier, shoulders square, attention tuned to something no one else could hear. Maya hesitated for 5 full seconds before following, not close enough to be told to go back, not far enough to be left behind. The hallway opened into a wider space with tall ceilings and exposed beams. It wasn't a lobby. It wasn't a barracks. It was something in between, part refuge, part outpost. A low hum of quiet activity moved through it like a pulse. She saw 2 people seated at a long table sorting through folders. Another was cleaning a pistol with meticulous patience. No uniforms, no insignias, but every one of them carried a weight in their posture that told its own history. Then Maya saw the dark sedan through the glass doors. 2 figures had already stepped out. Not military, not exactly. Suits, but with the posture of people who weren't strangers to recoil. The third door opened slowly, and a woman in her 50s emerged, her expression unreadable. Maya stopped walking. Her mother didn't. Eva opened the door before anyone could knock. The 3 visitors paused, assessing her with interest that didn't feel benign or hostile, just deliberate. The older woman spoke first, Commander Ristova. Eva said nothing. She stepped back just enough to let them enter, but not far enough to surrender ground. The woman looked around the space, then back at Eva. You made an impression today. Eva's voice didn't change. On who? On all the right people, the woman said. Maya couldn't see her mother's face from this angle, but she sensed the shift, the subtle tightening of a decision being measured in real time. Why are you here? Eva asked. The woman's eyes flicked briefly in Maya's direction before returning to Eva. There's an assignment resurfacing. Your name is on all the shortlists. I'm not active, Eva said. You're never fully inactive, the woman replied, especially when ghosts start moving. Maya's hands clenched at her side. She didn't know what ghosts they meant, hers or her mother. The man closest to the door scanned the room with a glance so quick most would miss it. But Maya saw it. The way he checked exits. The way he watched her mother like one might watch a coiled wire. The woman in the lead stepped further in. It's not about redeployment, she said. It's about closure, something been disturbed. Eva's tone cooled. Disturbed by who? The answer came without hesitation. Someone who still remembers you. That hit something invisible in the air. Maya didn't understand the weight of those words, but she felt them ripple across the floor like sound through water. Her mother's reply came quiet and sharp. Then you should start there, before they remember too much. The woman smiled faintly. That's exactly why we came. Maya stood frozen, her pulse racing, questions scraping at the edges of her mind. She didn't know what memory her mother had awakened by walking into that school. She didn't know who still remembered her, or why that mattered now. But for the first time, she sensed something she'd never named before. Her mother's silence wasn't empty. It was hiding something still alive. And whatever was coming next had been waiting longer than anyone realized. What kind of past could knock on your door without touching it? Maya stayed half hidden behind the hallway arch, pressing her back lightly to the wall, listening even when she didn't want to. The visitor stood in a loose triangle with her mother, polite spacing, no casual movements. Every gesture measured the way people moved when instinct still outranked comfort. Eva didn't invite them to sit. She also didn't ask them to leave. That was the strangest part. Her mother, who could turn silence into a shield, was letting this conversation exist in the open. That meant something. The older woman, the one who spoke like she already knew the answer to every question she asked, took another slow look around before folding her hands in front of her. "You know this isn't accidental," she said. Eva didn't blink. Few things are. "The sighting was confirmed in 2 locations," the woman continued. "One in Prague, one in Ankara, both within the last 6 weeks. Maya had no idea what that meant, but she heard the shift in her mother's breathing. Quiet, but not calm, like a pressure drop you felt in your bones before a storm. "And you're sure it was him," Eva said. "Not a question, an assessment." "We wouldn't be here if we weren't," the woman replied. One of the men remained quiet, but he watched her mother with the stillness of someone trained to see which direction trouble traveled from. The other man near the door checked something on a folded piece of paper, then tucked it away. Maya's heart kept stuttering, unsure whether to race or stop altogether. The woman's tone lowered by a fraction. He was never marked as deceased, only missing. "Convenient for you," Eva said. "Inconvenient for everyone else." A pause, heavier than the words themselves. Eva's next question was quieter. "Why bring it to me? You were the last to see him alive." That landed like a pin dropped into a cavern. Maya's stomach tightened. She didn't know who they were talking about, or why the name wasn't spoken aloud, but the truth was threaded between every syllable. Her mother stepped back half a pace, not retreating, recalibrating. "You have teams for this." The woman didn't disagree. "They don't know him, not like you do." That was the first time any of them glanced toward Maya again. The movement was brief, a scan, a calculation, not unkind but not dismissive either. It was worse than either. Eva's tone didn't waver. "This is not her concern." "Everything tied to you is tied to her," the woman said. "You know that." Something flashed in Eva's eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was closer to warning, directed at herself as much as them. Maya stepped back from the doorway before anyone could see her, pulse climbing higher with each breath. She didn't know whether to leave or stay. She didn't even know if leaving was an option. They spoke for another minute in low voices she couldn't quite make out. Then footsteps moved toward the entrance. A door opened, closed, engines started outside. She waited 3 breaths before stepping into the open space, expecting to see her mother still standing wherever she'd been when the conversation ended. But Eva was already walking toward a back corridor, as if she had somewhere she needed to be before her thoughts caught up. Maya followed without being told. They passed a series of closed rooms and another person she didn't recognize carrying a box of files. The air here smelled faintly of metal and old wood, like the memory of places people didn't admit still existed. Her mother opened a door at the end of the hall and stepped inside. It wasn't locked. It didn't need to be. Some doors guarded themselves. Maya hesitated only a second before crossing the threshold. It wasn't a large room, more like an archive than an office. Metal shelves lined the walls, most stacked with binders and sealed cases. A map on the far wall had no labels, just coordinates pinned with thin wire. Eva stood near a battered desk, fingers resting on the edge. Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Are you going to pretend I didn't hear any of that?" Her mother didn't turn. "No." "Then what was it?" "A reminder," Eva said. "Of what?" "That the past is patient." Maya stepped closer. "You knew they'd come." I knew someone might, Eva said. And you're not surprised. I'm rarely surprised. Maya exhaled shakily. Can you, just once, answer like a person, not like someone speaking in riddles? Eva finally turned. They were close enough now that Maya could see the thin scar at her hairline she always tried not to stare at. The light from the small window hit her face in a way that carved out the tension beneath her calm. I'm not hiding answers, she said quietly. I'm deciding which ones won't hurt you. Maya didn't look away, even though part of her wanted to. You showing up today, that wasn't just about the kids at school, was it? Eva's silence held an answer too large to name. Maya shook her head, more to herself than to her mother. Who is he, the person they're talking about? Her mother didn't speak. Not immediately. She moved to one of the shelves and pulled down a thin black folder with no markings. She placed it on the desk but didn't open it. Someone I was tasked to find, Eva said. Someone I was ordered to stop. And you did. I did, she said, just not in the way they expected. Maya stared at the folder. Did he try to hurt you? He tried to hurt Minnie, Eva said, voice flat. Did you kill him? The question came out before she could check the shape of it. Her mother's jaw tightened. I ended what he was doing. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'll give you right now. Maya's pulse drummed against her ribs. Why are they coming to you about him now? Because if he's alive, Eva said, he won't run. He'll return to what he started. Which was what? Her mother didn't respond. A knot formed in Maya's throat, thick and hot. So that's it. You walk into my school, scare half my class, then disappear into whatever ghost story you left unfinished. Eva stepped closer, studying her face, not correcting her, not softening, just seeing her. You think today was about intimidation, she said. It was. Then what was it about? Visibility. Maya frowned. That makes no sense. It does to the right eyes, Eva said. Maya's chest felt too small. What does that mean? That there are people who watch the shadows but forget to look in the light, she said. Sometimes you remind them where not to step. Maya tried to swallow, but the words stuck. You mean showing up today was a message? A boundary, Eva said. Against who? Anyone who thought you were unprotected. Maya blinked, once, twice. It took a full 10 seconds for her voice to return. You think I needed that? Eva didn't answer. Maya's shoulders dropped, part frustration, part disbelief. I didn't ask you to come. You didn't have to, her mother said. They asked for you first. Maya froze. Who did? The ones who mock the loudest are often the ones repeating someone else's doubt, Eva said. They weren't guessing. They were provoked. That realization slid in like ice under the ribs. Someone told them, Maya whispered. Someone told someone who told them, Eva said. Patterns don't start nowhere. It wasn't just playground mockery. It wasn't random curiosity about military rumors. It was seeded, planted, nudged. Maya felt the room tilt. Why would anyone do that? To test proximity, Eva said, to see if you were still within reach. Maya's breath caught. My reach or yours? Same answer. A knock interrupted them, not urgent, not hesitant either. The door opened before either spoke. It was the gray-haired man again. His eyes flicked briefly to the black folder on the desk before landing on Eva. You'll want to see this, he said. Eva nodded once and moved past him. Maya followed, though no one said to. They walked into a side room with a large table covered in spread documents, maps, and photographs held down by metal clips. A laptop glowed at the far end with a security feed paused on the screen. The image showed a building entrance. Not their building, somewhere older, foreign, dust clinging to its corners. A timestamp ran across the bottom, 10 days old. 2 men walked into frame. One held a phone. The other looked straight at the camera, not by accident, like he knew it was there. Maya didn't know him, not personally, but something in his eyes made her step back anyway. A flicker of recognition passed through her mother's expression like the shadow of something once controlled and now awake again. "Confirmed," the gray-haired man said. "Our contact in Ankara sent the footage 3 hours ago. Facial match came back 94%. Maya glanced at Eva. "Is that him?" Her mother nodded once. Maya looked again. The man in the still frame had a scar at his temple and a calm, almost courteous gaze, but behind it something else, calculation without remorse. "What does he want?" she asked. Eva's answer came low, almost inaudible. "He wants to finish what I stopped." Maya's breath stilled in her chest. "And he knows I exist." The room didn't move. The air didn't shift. But everything changed in that moment quietly, like a fuse being lit in a place no one was watching yet. How do you defend yourself from something you don't fully remember, but has already memorized you? Maya couldn't pull her eyes from the man in the paused frame. The grainy quality of the footage didn't blunt the intent in his expression. He looked calm, not like someone hiding, not like someone shocked to be seen, more like someone quietly amused that it took this long. Her mother didn't move closer to the screen. She didn't need to. Recognition wasn't about sight for her. It was something deeper, quieter, almost resigned. The gray-haired man reached across the table and tapped a photo clip to the edge. It was older, black and white, the paper creased and softened by years of storage. The same man, slightly younger, hair shorter, eyes sharper. The angle of his jaw matched. The stillness matched even more. "Last confirmed intelligence placed him near the Danube in 2015, the man said. "We assumed you closed it." Eva didn't acknowledge the assumption. "I did." "Then how?" "He didn't die," she said. "I left him with a choice. He clearly chose the harder option." Maya tore her gaze from the screen to study her mother's face. There was no fear there, no surprise, just something weightier, something she couldn't name. The man set down the file. "You stopped the operation. That should have been the end of it." "It was," Eva said softly, "for me." Maya's fingers curled around the edge of the table to ground herself. The room felt slightly tilted, like the floor had shifted without anyone noticing. The older woman from earlier reappeared in the doorway, one hand resting lightly on the frame. "We think he resurfaced because something changed." Eva's gaze lifted. "Changed where?" "Everywhere," the woman said. "Someone's pulled at old strings." "And they're tracing them back to me," Eva said. The woman didn't deny it. Maya's voice came out low, unsure if she was even meant to speak. "What did he do?" The room stilled, but no one silenced her. The gray-haired man spoke instead of Eva. He was a broker, a whisper trade specialist, unaligned but not unaffiliated. He didn't start wars, he fed them, he watched them grow. "And you were sent after him?" Maya asked, looking at her mother. Eva didn't blink. "I was sent after what he threatened to unleash." Maya swallowed hard. "What was that?" "Not something you're going to carry," Eva said simply. Maya bristled. "I'm already carrying it, I just don't know the shape of it yet." The woman at the door studied the two of them for a moment, then stepped into the room. She placed a folder on the table, separate from the others. The tab had no label, but the weight of it made every other document seem suddenly harmless. "There's another layer," she said, "not just him." Eva's tone shifted by a shade. "Who else?" The woman opened the folder halfway. Maya couldn't see the contents from her angle, but she caught glimpses. Locations, signatures, a date that looked like it had been erased and rewritten. "There's chatter around one of your old call signs," the woman said. "Not widespread, not public, but circulated just enough to serve as bait or signal." Maya's stomach dropped. "They're looking for you." "Or pretending to," the woman said. Eva's expression remained still, but the temperature in the room seemed to thin. "Who's circulating it?" "We don't know yet," the woman said. Someone who remembers enough but not everything. The man with the scar near the door, silent until now, finally spoke. Or someone who remembers exactly what they're doing. Maya forced air into her lungs. Why would someone use her call sign? What does that? It draws ghosts, her mother said quietly. The living ones and the dead ones. The woman closed the folder and straightened. Which means someone is signaling him, or signaling you to find him. Eva didn't move, and you want me to do exactly that. You're the only one with the map, the woman said. Maya looked between them, frustration rising with the fear she refused to name. Why does any of this connect to me? Eva met her eyes, and in that moment, for the first time since they'd left the school, she looked almost pained. Not broken, just unwilling. Because you exist where I was supposed to disappear. Maya stared at her. That doesn't answer anything. It answers everything, her mother said softly. Before she could demand clarity, a phone buzzed on the table, not loud, not panicked, just one short vibration. The gray-haired man reached for it, glanced at the screen, then held it out to Eva without a word. She read it once, her eyes narrowing by a fraction. Then she handed it back. What? Maya asked. Eva didn't hesitate. Someone's already reached your school. A fresh chill crept through the air. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. Who? Not him, Eva said. Not yet, but someone adjacent enough to take interest in what you said and who responded to it. Maya replayed the moment in her mind. The whispers, the mockery, the way Bryce and the others seemed so certain she was lying before they even started joking. That certainty hadn't been earned. It had been planted. Her pulse thrummed. You think someone pushed them on purpose? Eva's answer came without decoration. I know they did. The woman at the table folded her arms. Which means your daughter wasn't an accident in this. The words made Maya's skin tighten. I didn't do anything. You existed, Eva said gently. That was enough. Maya didn't know whether to be angry, terrified, or both. Eva looked at the gray-haired man. Secure the perimeter. No one walks in or out without clearance. He nodded once and left. The woman gathered the loose pages and slid the black folder toward Eva. You don't have to agree yet. Just don't pretend you were left out of this equation. Eva didn't reach for the folder. I don't pretend. You do, the woman said evenly, when it lets you breathe longer. Their eyes held intense stillness. Not adversarial, not friendly. Just two people remembering different versions of the same history. Finally, the woman turned to leave. We'll be in touch sooner than either of us would like. She and the two men disappeared down the hall without another glance. The room felt whiter once they were gone. Maya finally spoke into the quiet. Are they going to make you go back? Her mother didn't move her gaze from the table. They don't make me do anything. But you're thinking about it. Eva didn't deny it. Maya stepped closer, forcing herself to speak even though her throat wanted to lock shut. If you leave again, you think I'll be safer. Eva finally looked at her. If he's resurfacing, your safety becomes conditional. Distance doesn't erase that. Then what does? Her mother hesitated, barely but enough. Control, she said. Maya hated that word in that moment. It tasted like sacrifice and secrets and sleepless nights. The door opened again. This time by someone different, a woman in her 30s with dark hair tied back in a quiet, soldier's posture. She didn't step fully inside. They're asking if you want the vehicles moved off-grid, she said to Eva. Eva nodded once. Do it. The woman disappeared. Maya folded her arms around herself. So what now? For today, her mother said, you eat, you rest, you don't leave this place. And you, Maya asked. I clean up the noise I caused walking into that school. Maya's breath caught. You regret it. No, Eva said, then after a pause, but it echoed farther than intended. Maya sat heavily on the edge of the desk. What does he want from you? Her mother didn't look away. Acknowledgement, revenge, closure, or all three. And from me. Nothing, Eva said firmly, then softly, not yet. The words didn't comfort her, they hollowed her. She stared at the paused image still glowing on the screen. The man seemed to be looking right through the camera, through the years, through her mother, through her. She didn't know his name, she didn't know his story. But she knew one thing with sudden, chilling clarity. Whoever he was still moving. In some unfinished part of her mother's life, had just remembered how to find them. Why did safety always feel most fragile the moment someone told you that you had it? Maya sat on the edge of the desk long after the screen dimmed into black. She could still see the man's eyes in her mind, still feel the way the room shifted when his existence was confirmed. It was like a low-frequency sound no one else could hear but her bones did. Her mother didn't rush her. She just moved through the space with that silent efficiency she carried like breath. She gathered the scattered papers on the table, placed some in a drawer, and locked others in a steel case built into the wall. Maya noticed how nothing she touched was left exposed, not even for a moment. It wasn't paranoia. It was muscle memory. Eventually, Eva spoke without turning. You should lie down for a while. I'm not tired. You're not steady. Maya opened her mouth to argue but stopped. She wasn't steady. The ground under everything she thought she knew had shifted, and she didn't even know how far it would slide. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. There's a room prepared for you down the hall, third on the left. Maya exhaled, prepared, like you knew this was going to happen. I don't wait for events to explain themselves, Eva said simply. Maya almost laughed, except nothing was funny. Do you ever say things in a way normal people could survive? Her mother didn't react, not with annoyance, not with apology. Maya slid off the desk, not trusting her legs until her feet touched the floor. Are you going to disappear tonight? Eva looked at her then, really looked. No. Tomorrow. No. Soon. Her mother hesitated just long enough to make the air in the room tighten. Someone will make the next move quickly. I'll be there before they do. Maya hated how those words held both promise and warning. She followed her mother out of the map room and back down the narrow hallway. The building felt like a secret bunker disguised as a forgotten storage complex. No signs, no decoration, just necessity carved into concrete and discipline. They reached the third door. Eva opened it without knocking. The space wasn't large, but it was warmer than she expected. A narrow bed, a folded blanket, a small table, a single lamp. A window set high in the wall showed only sky and the tops of distant trees. No view of the road, no way to see who was coming. Maya stepped inside. This looks like a place people stay when they don't plan on unpacking. It's a place people stay when they're not expected to be found, Eva said. Maya turned. How many places like this do you have? Enough. Her mother didn't come in. She stayed at the threshold as if crossing would break some unspoken rule. If someone comes here, Maya said quietly, do they know I'm with you? No one is coming here without stepping over people I trust, Eva said. That doesn't answer my question. Eva's jaw shifted. If someone is looking for you, they'll go to your name first, not this place. Maya understood the implication. The danger wasn't near her body yet. It was near her identity. She imagined Bryce back at school, the others, their phones, their parents, their whispers. She realized her mother had walked into that building not just to silence mockery, but to redirect attention. A war tactic disguised as maternal intervention. She suddenly felt sick. You really think someone used them to reach me? She asked. I think someone wanted to see how fast I would arrive, Eva said. And you showed them. I showed them enough to reconsider their pace. Maya stared at her, and if they do, then they'll arrive on a schedule, I already anticipated. There was no arrogance in her mother's tone, just a chilling certainty that made it hard to breathe. Maya moved deeper into the room and sat on the bed. What was his name? Eva didn't move. Names are currency, I don't spend them casually. You spent mine, Maya said quietly. That landed, not loudly but deeply. Eva's expression didn't shift, but her silence changed temperature. Maya looked down at her hands. You knew they'd use me one day. I knew someone might try, her mother said. And you didn't tell me. I wanted you to live before you learned why you might run. A brittle laugh escaped Maya. So my whole life was what? Borrowed time. No, Eva said, protected time. Maya lifted her head. From who? Her mother didn't blink. From who I used to be around. That answer sat between them like a blade laid flat. Footsteps approached down the hall, controlled but not urgent. The door remained open and a figure stepped into view, the dark-haired woman from earlier. They want you in the East Room, she said to Eva. 2 calls came through channels we don't use anymore. Eva nodded, already processing the implications. The woman's attention flicked to Maya. You need anything? She asked, tone neutral but not unkind. Maya didn't know how to answer that. A manual, she almost said, for whatever this life is. Instead, she shook her head. The woman left. Eva didn't follow yet. You'll stay in this room unless I say otherwise, she told Maya. That going to be before or after you reopen whatever this is? Before, Eva said. Maya couldn't tell if that was a promise or a delay. Her mother stepped back from the door. Don't lock it, she said. Doors should open quickly if you need to move. Then she was gone. Maya listened to her footsteps disappear down the corridor until the silence returned to its full volume. She lay back on the bed, eyes on the ceiling, trying to swallow the sense that the world had shifted beneath her like a floorboard that only breaks when you stop testing it. Minutes passed, or maybe a half hour. Time bent differently here, compressed and stretched at once. Someone walked by outside her room, then another, distant voices, the quiet hum of unseen equipment, a door closing somewhere deeper in the building. She sat up, restless and wired. Sleep wasn't going to come, not with that face still etched behind her eyes. She stood and moved to the small window. She had to stand on the lower frame of the wall to see the tree line in the distance. The sky was starting to fade from blue to bruised gold. Somewhere beyond those trees, roads twisted back toward town, toward her school, toward everyone who didn't know they'd wandered into someone else's crosshairs. She thought of Bryce, of the others, of the laughter she'd endured like static in her ears. It all felt strangely distant now, like remembering something that had happened to someone else. A soft knock on her open doorway broke her trance. It was the gray-haired man again, holding a tray, a bowl of soup, bread, water. He set it on the table without ceremony. You should eat, he said. Maya nodded, not sure if she would. He didn't leave immediately. His eyes, sharper than she'd noticed before, studied her with a kind of familiarity she couldn't place. You look like her, he said. Maya didn't know if that was meant kindly. I get that a lot. It's not about appearance, he said. It's the way you listen to silence, like it's speaking instead of stopping sound. Maya blinked. Did you know her before all this? He gave a half-smile that wasn't amusement. There is no before with people like her, only versions. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're outside this, he said. Some things pass through blood whether you ask them to or not. Before she could reply, he stepped away, his footsteps fading into the hum of the building. Maya sat back on the bed, staring at the tray. Her appetite was gone, but the truth he'd spoken lodged itself somewhere deeper than hunger. There was a map of her mother's life she had never seen. And whether she was ready or not, something had just unfolded the first corner of it and pointed at her name. Outside the window, dusk pressed its palm against the glass. And somewhere far beyond, a man who should have stayed gone was already walking in their direction. How do you fall asleep when the shadows in your mind know more history than you do? Maya sat motionless long after the tray of soup went cold. The room felt neither safe nor dangerous, just exposed in a way walls couldn't fix. Every sound in the hallway registered in her body before her mind could assign meaning to it. Voices rose and fell, distant but intentional. Doors opened and closed. A printer hummed somewhere behind the concrete. She didn't know what half the rooms were used for, or who moved between them. All she knew was that no one here wasted steps. Her mother hadn't returned. That meant one of two things. She was planning or she was already acting. Either way, silence was the only message she ever left behind. Eventually, the stillness pressed too hard against her ribs and she stood. Not to leave, just to move before she dissolved into waiting. The hallway outside was dim but not dark, lit by narrow wall lights that glowed with quiet intent. She stepped into it slowly, like trespassing in a story she hadn't earned the right to hear. She didn't go far. At the end of the corridor, she saw a figure sitting on a bench built into the wall. Broad-shouldered still, elbows resting on his knees. One of the men who'd arrived with the older woman earlier. He didn't look at her, but she could feel his awareness shift in her direction, the way a compass corrects itself when north walks by. She hesitated, then forced herself forward until she was close enough that ignoring him would feel like cowardice. "You're not with her, are you?" she asked quietly. He didn't pretend not to understand. "I'm not assigned to her." His voice was calm, shaped by years of removing excess from every sentence. "But you came with the woman who is." He didn't answer that directly. "I've observed Commander Rostova before. It rarely ends quietly." Maya crossed her arms, defensiveness rising without invitation. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No," he glanced at her now, one eye catching the corridor light. "It's supposed to make you ready." "For what?" "The part where decisions reach farther than plans." She hated how easily these people spoke in implications. "You knew about him too," she said. "The man in the picture, you recognized him." "I recognize the consequences of him," the man said. "What does that even mean?" He held her stare for a measured beat. "Cause is a luxury. After a certain point, only effect remains." She absorbed that, unsure whether it was wisdom or warning. He looked down the hall, toward the east rooms where her mother had gone. "If she steps back into this, no one stops her." "Are you here to stop her?" A strange flicker, something almost like amusement, passed through his expression. "I'm here to measure the blast radius." Maya swallowed. "Of her or him?" "Both," he said. Before she could ask more, footsteps approached from the opposite end of the hallway. A woman she hadn't seen yet, tall, wearing jeans and a long-sleeved shirt marked only by practicality, rounded the corner carrying a stack of rolled maps under one arm. She nodded to the man, then slowed when she saw Maya. "You shouldn't be wandering alone," she said, not harshly, not gently. "I'm not wandering," Maya lied. The woman raised an unimpressed eyebrow but didn't press it. "He's in operations," she said, nodding at the man on the bench. "If you're lost, he won't tell you. If you're in the way, he'll move you without explanation." The man didn't deny it. Maya narrowed her eyes. "Are you supposed to make me feel welcome or intimidated?" "Neither," the woman said coolly. "I'm supposed to make sure you understand this place isn't designed around you." Maya didn't flinch. It wasn't designed around her either, but she walks like she built it. That made the woman pause, for half a heartbeat, then two. "Maybe she did," the man said almost to himself. The woman adjusted one of the rolled maps under her arm. "She wants you to rest, do that. If you faint from exhaustion, it slows things down." "I'm fine," Maya said. The woman stepped closer, stopping just inside what most people would call personal space. "Your pulse is too fast, and your hands have been flexing since you left your room. You're not fine." Maya hated how accurately she'd been seen. "I don't sleep when I don't understand what's happening." "Understanding is irrelevant tonight," the woman said. "Proximity is all that matters." "To what?" Maya demanded. "To the next 8 hours," the woman said. "That's where the first break happens." Maya frowned. "Break?" "Pressure reveals intention," the woman said. "People either step forward or collapse in on themselves. The first break shows who's about to do which." She moved past them without waiting for a response, disappearing into another corridor with soundless confidence. Maya exhaled slowly. "Does everyone here talk like that?" The man gave a small shrug. "Language matters. Words are weapons or shields." "Which was that?" "Armor," he said. Maya glanced back toward her room. "You think I should listen to her?" "I think," he said, "you should listen for what your mother doesn't say instead of chasing what she won't." She stared at him, something in her chest tightening. "Do you know what she did? The mission they're talking about?" He leaned back against the wall, elbows resting on the bench now. "I know enough to avoid telling you." Maya's frustration flared. "You all act like I'm made of glass." He looked at her, not unkindly, not softly either, like someone who evaluated before judging. "You're not glass," he said. "You're unfinished. There's a difference." The words settled in her like a stone dropped into water, clean, blunt, irrevocable. She didn't respond, couldn't. She turned and walked back to her room, pulse thrumming in her ears. When she closed the door behind her, she didn't lock it, not because she wasn't afraid, because her mother had told her not to. She sat on the bed again. The lamp cast a small pool of light over the blanket, leaving the rest of the room in muted shadow. The soup remained untouched, but she forced herself to eat a few bites. The flavor barely registered, but the warmth helped anchor her. She set the bowl down and pulled her knees to her chest, tucking her chin over them the way she had as a kid when storms rattled the windows. Back then, she thought storms were just weather. Now she wasn't sure they ever had been. She didn't know how much time passed before she heard footsteps again, quieter, lighter, practiced. She knew that walk without needing to see it. Her mother appeared in the doorway. She didn't come in. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "Neither did you," Maya replied. Eva's gaze flicked to the half-eaten tray. "Good. That surprised you." "No," a pause, "but it matters." Maya set her feet back on the floor. "You going to tell me what happens next?" "I'm going to tell you what matters most about it." Maya waited. Eva stepped inside, just far enough for the light to fall across her face. The air shifted with her. "There are two kinds of pursuit," she said. "The kind that comes to finish something and the kind that comes to rewrite it." "Which is this?" "Both," she said. "And you're going to stop it." "I'm going to determine the direction it takes," Eva said. "Then I'm going to make sure you're not in its path." Maya stared at her. "What if I already am?" "You're not," Eva said, and for the first time all day there was a fracture in her voice, barely there but real. Maya leaned forward. "Why does he matter so much to you?" Eva's eyes held hers. "Because I made a decision once about how his story ended, and now I have to confirm I was right to do it that way." "And if you were?" "Then I correct it." Maya's stomach twisted. "You're not telling me something." "I'm not telling you many things," Eva said. "I deserve to know." "You deserve to live first," her mother said, voice razor soft. They didn't look away from each other. Then, with a shift so small it almost didn't register, Eva sat on the edge of the bed beside her. She didn't reach out. She didn't speak again right away. She just sat there in the one way she knew how to say she wasn't leaving yet. Maya didn't realize she was breathing differently until her shoulders unclenched one notch. Her mother looked ahead, not at her, when she finally said, "Before this ends, someone will try to reach you again. Not violently, not directly, just to see if I step where they expect me to. And will you? Maya asked. No, Eva said. Why not? Because I never go where I'm invited. Maya let out a breath that didn't know whether to be relief or dread. What happens if he comes himself? Eva didn't blink. Then he remembers me better than I thought. And you? A pause that stretched and then settled like dust. I don't forget what I bury. Maya didn't speak after that. Her mother didn't either. They sat in silence that wasn't empty, until a soft chime sounded over the unseen intercom system, and someone's voice spoke quietly down the hall, calling her mother's name. Eva stood. Stay here. Maya didn't ask where she was going. She just nodded once. Her mother stepped into the hallway, turned left and disappeared. The door stayed open behind her. Maya stared into the space she'd just left, heart thudding in a rhythm shaped by a truth she wasn't meant to touch yet. She wasn't outside the story. She was the part he'd notice first. How do you stay still when every instinct you never trained is waking up? Maya sat on the edge of the bed long after her mother disappeared into the hallway. The silence of the room pressed in again, but this time it felt watchful, like something unseen was holding its breath. She could still feel the imprint of where Eva had been sitting beside her, a quiet, weighted presence that lingered long after absence reclaimed the space. She stood and crossed to the door, not stepping out, just looking down the hallway where her mother had gone. The building seemed to move differently now, not louder, just more awake. Voices no longer lingered in the distance. Footsteps had more purpose. Doors shut all the way instead of being left ajar. Something had shifted. She leaned against the doorframe, trying to hear what she wasn't being told. That was something she'd always known how to do, read the silence around words instead of waiting for explanations. It was how she survived being her mother's daughter without knowing what her mother had survived. A figure moved at the far end of the hall, one of the men from earlier, the one with the scar near his collar. He was speaking to someone she couldn't see, his posture straight but unconcerned. Soldiers, or whatever they were, always carried themselves like that, not relaxed, not tense, just calibrated. He glanced in her direction once before disappearing around another corner. He hadn't needed to speak to communicate what he saw. A variable, not yet a liability, but no longer invisible. She stepped back inside her room and closed the door to its usual narrow gap. She didn't latch it. The soup was cold now, but she forced herself to finish it, more because she knew someone would notice if she didn't than because she wanted to eat. She set the bowl aside and wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the ceiling until the stillness became unbearable again. A low hum vibrated behind the wall, machinery, servers, maybe a communications hub. Nothing here was surface level. Everything ran deeper than it appeared. She needed air. Not escape, just breath. She crossed the room again and slipped into the hall, this time walking with intent before she could lose her nerve. Her bare feet made no sound along the concrete floor. No one stopped her. No one asked where she was going. At the intersection she'd passed earlier, she hesitated, then turned right instead of left. The corridor sloped slightly downward, barely noticeable unless you were paying attention. She paid attention. The lights here were dimmer, spaced farther apart. She passed a closed door with a reinforced frame and another with a keypad lock that hummed quietly. Voices echoed from somewhere behind her, then faded. She came to the end of the hallway and found a door that didn't match the others. It had no handle, just a metal bar across the middle and a narrow, wired glass panel at eye level. She peered through it. Beyond was a garage. 5 vehicles, maybe 6, not all immediately visible. One had its hood up. Another sat on a platform that could lower or raise into the ground. Tools hung on a pegboard along the back wall, and a work table was covered in spread equipment she didn't recognize. Someone was in there. The dark-haired woman from earlier, the one with the maps. She was rolling up another large sheet, her brow creased in thought. Her movements were precise, not rushed. Maya lifted her hand to the glass, but didn't knock. The woman looked up anyway. Their eyes met through the panel. The woman considered her silently, then walked over and unlatched the door. "You're not supposed to be wandering," she said, though not with surprise. Maya stepped into the garage, the air cooler here, smelling faintly of oil and dust. "I wasn't wandering. I was walking." "Same thing if you don't know the terrain." "I'm learning it," Maya said. The woman set down the rolled map. "Not fast enough." Maya ignored the sting of that. "Is this place yours?" "No," the woman said. "Places like this don't belong to anyone. They're used, then erased." Maya's gaze moved across the room again, tracking every detail she could. "Was she here often?" "Not in the way you're thinking," the woman said. "Eva doesn't return to places. She repurposes them." Maya swallowed. "What does that make this then?" "A waypoint," the woman said. "Or a vault, depending on the day." "What's it today?" The woman didn't answer immediately. She wiped her hands on a cloth, then nodded toward a workbench along the wall. "Come here," she said. Maya hesitated only a second before following. The bench held several objects laid out on a clean cloth: folded maps, two small comm devices, an unmarked hard case, and a knife with no visible sheath. The woman didn't explain them. Instead, she pointed at the opposite wall. "Pick one," she said. Maya frowned. "Pick what?" "A way out." Maya turned fully to look. There were 3 doors. One she recognized as the one she'd entered through. The other 2 were nearly identical, but one had a small rusted hinge near the base and the other didn't. Maya studied them carefully. She pointed to the door on the left, the one with the hinge. "That one." The woman nodded once. "Show me why." Maya stepped closer, crouching to the floor to examine the base seam. That hinge used to be part of something heavier, probably external. Someone replaced the main lock but didn't redo the frame. It'll still give if you pressure the lower panel. The woman tilted her head. "And the other door?" "Newer," Maya said. "The gap is flush. Less wear on the tile in front of it too. No one drags crates through that one." The woman was quiet for a beat too long. Then she asked, "How old are you?" 16. The woman didn't react outwardly. "Who taught you to notice hinges and tile scarring at 16? Maya felt her throat tighten. "No one, I just see things." The woman didn't argue. She walked back to the workbench and picked up the cloth again. "You don't see everything," she said. "Not yet." Maya stepped back to the door she'd entered through. "Then tell me what I'm not seeing." "That depends on what you're asking," the woman said. "Why are we here?" Maya said. "Why did she bring me instead of sending someone else to pick me up from school? Why today? Why now?" The woman met her gaze evenly. "Because someone else was already on their way." The air in the room dropped 5 degrees. Maya's voice came out quiet. "To the school." "Yes." "Who?" "Not him," the woman said, "but someone who wants him found." Maya took that in like a blow she refused to stumble from. So she walked in and made them leave. "She walked in," the woman said, "and made them hesitate." Maya's chest rose and fell too fast. "And you all think that's enough?" "No," the woman said, "which is why we're still awake." Before Maya could respond, a low alarm beeped twice overhead. Not loud, not alarming, just a tone meant for those who already knew its meaning. The woman glanced up. She pressed a button on a nearby console, and a voice crackled through the speaker. "Commander Ristova to East Archive. External Channel 3 is backlogged, and there's traffic from Ankara." The woman's eyes flicked to Maya. "Stay here." Maya stepped forward. "I want to." "No," the woman said. "You don't even know what I was going to say." "Yes, I do," she said, "and no." Maya clenched her jaw. "You act like I'm going to break." The woman's response was flat. I act like you've never been tested. Then she left. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt too final. Maya stood in the middle of the garage, surrounded by machinery and maps and weapons she couldn't name. For a moment, the silence felt like a weight. Then slowly, it shifted into something else, an opening. She crossed to the workbench again. The knife gleamed under the fluorescence, the handle wrapped in dark material worn smooth by use. The unmarked case sat beside it, locked with two latches. She didn't touch either. Instead, she moved to the door she'd chosen earlier and knelt to inspect the hinge again. She pressed her fingers lightly against the seam. The panel gave, barely, but enough. Not escape. Just confirmation. She stood and walked back to the center of the room, pulse steadying without permission. Footsteps moved above her now, distant, deliberate. The building was fully alive. And somewhere beneath all that movement, a truth she didn't want but couldn't ignore was taking shape. She wasn't waiting for danger to arrive. She was already inside the echo of its first step. What does it mean to be protected by someone the world once feared? Maya stood alone in the garage, surrounded by tools of lives she didn't live. The leftover heat of voices still clung to the air, but now the space felt like a lung holding breath. Every sound in the building above her shifted in weight, doors closing, muffled voices exchanging clipped information, the hum of unseen systems rerouting energy toward whatever was waking up. She moved toward the workbench again, not to touch anything, just to feel less like a bystander in a story written in a language no one would translate for her. Her fingers grazed the edge of the cloth where the maps had been. Something had been drawn there. Roads, perimeters, structures outlined without labels. She wished, for a moment, she didn't understand why. Footsteps approached from behind, not fast, not careless. She recognized the cadence before she turned. Her mother. Eva crossed the space with a pace born of urgency tempered by control. She didn't ask why Maya was there. She didn't comment on her absence from the room she was supposed to rest in. She didn't need to. She stopped in front of her daughter, eyes scanning her face with the same exactness she used on maps, threats, and fault lines. You left your room, she said quietly. You weren't there, Maya replied. There was no accusation in her tone, just the unvarnished truth of absence. Eva nodded once, accepting the answer without apology. Someone from one of the older networks patched into a relay we haven't used in years. Looking for you. No, Eva said, looking around me. Maya's stomach tightened. Around me too. Never separately, she said. Maya looked past her at the vehicles half hidden in the shadows. Why do they care now? He's been gone for years. They thought he was dead. So did you. I didn't think, Eva said. I chose not to confirm. Why? Her mother looked at her for a long moment. Because some endings aren't decided by force. They're decided by what breaks inside someone when force stops working. Maya absorbed that, and you think he broke. I think, Eva said slowly, he paused. And now he's unpausing. He's remembering. Silence sat with them a moment too long. Maya stepped closer, forcing a question she was afraid to hear the answer to. Did you ever know him, before you were sent after him? No. But he knew you. Yes. How? Eva's jaw tightened slightly, because someone told him who to fear. Maya blinked, fear of you. Her mother didn't answer that directly. Men like him don't fear death, they fear irrelevance. So you made him irrelevant, Maya said. Eva didn't deny it. Before Maya could ask more, a door on the far side of the garage swung open. The gray-haired man from earlier stepped through, his gaze moving between them with purpose. They traced the relay signal to a secondary node in Berlin, he said. Encrypted dialects match his old channels. Eva's posture didn't shift, but something in the space around her did. Confirmed. Not yet, but two of the signatures match operators he used to work through. One is dead. The other disappeared after Ankara. Who else knows? Eva asked. Only those already in the room, he said, glancing at Maya then away. Lock the channels, Eva said. Anyone trying to look for him needs to find nothing but shadows. The man nodded and left without another glance. Maya exhaled. You're going after him. Eva didn't blink. He's already moving. And you're going to meet him. I'm going to intercept the distance, she said. Maya's voice thinned. You think he'll come here? No, Eva said. He'll go somewhere I used to be. He'll expect I'll follow that ghost. And will you? Eva studied her daughter now, not assessing, not shielding, just seeing her as she was. No, she said. Maya swallowed. Then what are you going to do? Eva paused as though selecting words with surgical precision. I'm going to tell him the part of the story he wasn't meant to hear. What story? The one I spared him from. Maya searched her mother's face. Did you ever tell anyone why you didn't kill him? Eva's silence was answer enough. Footsteps moved in the hallway beyond the far door, urgent but controlled. The woman with the maps re-entered, her expression sharper now. Your call sign just lit up twice on a closed thread, she said to Eva. Someone's invoking you directly. Eva's eyes narrowed by a fraction. Let them. You really want them to think you're listening? The woman asked. I want them to think I'm not hiding, Eva said. The woman gave a thin breath that passed for approval. You're not going alone. Eva turned her head. I never do. The woman didn't look at Maya. Does she stay or move? Stay, Eva said. No, Maya interrupted, the word escaping sharper than she intended. I'm not being left behind again. Eva faced her fully now. You're not being left behind. You're being placed out of reach. Maya felt heat rise behind her eyes. You think that makes a difference to him? He knows I exist now. He's known longer than you think, Eva said softly. Maya froze. What? Eva stepped closer. The reason he was stopped was not only what he intended to do, it was what he learned he could do if he survived. Maya stared at her, breath caught in her chest. What does that mean? It means the people who use him, Eva said, will use what he remembers. And what does he remember? Eva held her daughter's eyes for a long, relentless moment. That I had a reason to leave the field when I did. Maya's heart stuttered. Me. Eva neither confirmed nor denied, and that was worse. The woman at their side spoke again, quieter now. They're going to move soon. All signals point to extraction from Europe within the next 48. Then I move first, Eva said. Maya reached out and caught her wrist. Not hard, but with the force of someone who had finally admitted fear was not the same as weakness. You come back, Maya said, not a question, a directive shaped by desperation and defiance. Eva's gaze lowered to her hand. For a moment she didn't speak. Then, I don't leave things unfinished. That's not an answer, Maya said. It's the only one I've ever survived by. Maya's voice wavered. And if this time? It won't be this time, Eva said. How can you be sure? For the first time, something fragile passed through her mother's expression, almost like memory brushing skin it once burned. Because last time, she said, I was alone. They didn't speak again for several beats. Then Eva gently freed her wrist, not with force but with quiet finality. The woman with the maps nodded once. We're wheels up in 22 minutes. Eva turned to her daughter one last time. Stay inside the first layer, not deeper, not higher. If someone comes before I return, do not believe they were sent by me. Maya clenched her fists. How will I know the difference? You'll feel it, Eva said. And if I do? A pause, a breath. Then wait, she said. She turned before the weight of it could settle further. 3 people were already moving toward the service exit by the time she reached the far door. Someone tossed her a folded comm earpiece. She didn't break stride. The door shut behind her and didn't reopen. The garage fell quiet again. Maya stood in the center of it, listening not to the silence, but to the echo it was holding. The man in Ankara, the relay in Berlin, the planted mockery in her school, all of it circling the same truth. This wasn't the beginning. It was the point where history remembered her mother's name. Something in her posture changed then, not with certainty, but with understanding. The weight she carried wasn't one she asked for, but it had already been assigned to her blood. She crossed back to the workbench and sat on the edge of it, staring at the unopened hard case. She didn't touch it. She just said, into the empty space that felt less empty now than ever, "You're not the only one who doesn't leave things unfinished." Above her, heavy doors rumbled open, engines started, the foundation vibrated faintly. And somewhere, beyond the places she could see, a man who once should have died was listening for a voice he had not heard in years. Unaware that this time, silence was not her mother's only weapon. Because some legacies don't echo. They arrive. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply returns to what remembers it.